Hi, this is Elizabeth Hancock, host of the Great Awakening podcast. So, yesterday I stumbled across something which I found very interesting and I wanted to share today. It is a transmission that was broadcast out in 1977. It actually interrupted the news in the UK. And then a broadcast was transmitted from someone called Ashtar Command. They were part of the Galactic Federation. And it was a man speaking. He interrupted the TV station and he broadcast this transmission, which I find so interesting. And I wanted to read out the transmission today and then discuss a few things after it. So I'm just going to read out the transmission first, and then we'll look at it in a little bit more detail afterwards. So the transmission goes like this. For many years, you have seen us as lights in the skies. We speak to you now in peace and wisdom, as we have done for your brothers and sisters all over this, your planet, Earth. We come to warn you of the destiny of your race and your world, so that you may communicate to your fellow beings the course you must take to avoid the disaster which threatens your world and the beings on our worlds around you. This is in order that you may share in the Great Awakening as the planet passes into the new age of Aquarius. The new age can be a time of great peace and evolution for your race, but only if your rulers are made aware of the evil forces that can overshadow their judgments. Be still now and listen, for your chance may not come again. All your weapons of evil must be removed. The time for conflict is now past, and the race of which you are part may proceed to the higher stages of its evolution if you show yourselves worthy to do this. You have but a short time to learn to live together in peace and goodwill. Small groups all over the planet are learning this and exist to pass on the light of the dawning new age to you all. You are free to accept or reject their teachings, but only those who learn to live in peace will pass to the higher realms of spiritual evolution. You must learn to be sensitive to the voice within that can tell you what is truth and what is confusion, chaos, and untruth. Learn to listen to the voice of truth which is within you, and you will lead yourselves onto the path of evolution. This is our message to our dear friends. We have watched you growing for many years, as you too have watched our lights in your skies. You know now that we are here, and that there are more beings on and around your Earth than your scientists admit. We are deeply concerned about you and your path towards the light, and will do all we can to help you. Have no fear, seek only to know yourselves and live in harmony with the ways of your planet Earth. We here at the Ashtar Galactic Command thank you for your attention. We are now leaving the planes of your existence. May you be blessed by the supreme love and truth of the cosmos. So I find this very interesting. Now, of course, it was broadcast in 1977, and I suspect a lot has changed since then. Not least, we're on different timelines, I think, from then as well. But the first point of interest is that he seems to be referring to dimensions. So he's calling us a planet, but the way that he is describing it, it seems to be other dimensions. For example, he says, we are now leaving the planes of your existence. Well, that to me sounds very much like dimensions. So he's leaving our dimension. And he's in the higher realms. We know from the Indian Vedas that they split the earth between the higher realms where the devas were and the lower realms where humans, reptilians, and greys were. So he's telling us that we are now free to move to the higher realms. So in my mind, that's higher dimensions, higher densities, whichever way we want to look at that. We know that space is not what we've been taught it is, but I don't think that that doesn't mean space doesn't exist. I just think it means that space isn't what we currently think it is. And of course, we know Professor Chaim Eshed said exactly that. He said that the Galactic Federation were waiting for us to reach a point where we would understand what space and spacecrafts are. So he's also saying only those who learn to live in peace will pass to the higher realms of spiritual evolution. Is he insinuating there that there are some of us that have passed that higher spiritual evolution and others of us who haven't? Are we the ones that haven't? Are we the lower consciousness beings, humans, that are talked about in the Indian Vedas? And have the higher consciousness beings already moved on? We know from previous episodes in the Tartaria conference that at the end of each astrological age is the time when, if you like, the gates open, everything is exposed, and we are free at that point to either move to the higher realms or possibly to reincarnate back into Earth again and go through more of the struggle until we learn to be compassionate, loving, peaceful, caring individuals. And then it seems that possibly we are free to move along to the higher realms as well. I've often thought about the different civilizations that have completely vanished. For example, the Mayans. But what if the Tartarians were also in that? And the higher consciousness beings essentially evolved. They evolved out of this realm to the higher realms. And what we have here is what was left. What I also find interesting is that he doesn't say anything about how we need to be awake to be able to move to the higher realms. He only talks about how we need to live in peace and goodwill. So in his broadcast, he says that we have a short time to learn this. And what is he saying there? Is he saying that something is going to happen? And is he referring to the indigenous tribe talk of resets? Again, we know from the Indian Vedas that those of a higher consciousness can walk through the Himalayas and reach the higher realms, and those of a lower consciousness literally walk through the mountains and end up in China. It's interesting how he talks about how we are surrounded by truth and untruth, and he talks about the Great Awakening. As we know, this is the time period that we are in. It's the time period that the indigenous tribes have talked about for a very long time, and we are in it now. And how we need to use our heart wisdom to discern it, that we need to discern what is truth and what is untruth. We are in the era of misinformation and information, but I believe that we are surrounded by a lot of truth. And as a researcher myself, I find this quite an interesting time to be alive. There's a lot of information coming out, and it's only up for us to discern what is true and what is not true for us. He also talks about there being many more beings on and around Earth, again, seeming to insinuate that we're talking about other dimensions here. And also, when we think about the amount of different skeletal remains of different beings that have been found in our world, we can see that there are indeed many more beings. We think about the mermaids, the dogmen, the chest-faced men, the dragons, the beings that live under the ocean, the beings that live in the mountains. I feel that Earth itself is a multidimensional hub covered in portals that take us or move into other realms, and we access those realms through frequency. And of course, that would make perfect sense. The higher realms we access through higher frequencies. And that is what I think he's talking about here, that we have this chance to do that now, to access the higher frequencies through our hearts, through our emotions, through compassion, through goodwill, as he calls it, through essentially being a nice person, and we are able to continue on our spiritual evolution and connect back to those higher realms ourselves. He also talks about the scientists knowing of these different beings on and around Earth. And I would say that if the scientists know that, then the world leaders do as well. And of course, we know this now. This is the time of disclosure. The disclosure is coming, but it's being delayed all the time. And the world leaders are trying to delay this true understanding of what our world really is, what space is, what spacecraft are, what ETs are, what are these different transdimensional, interdimensional beings, entities. We live in an energetic universe. Not everything is physical. Not everything has a body. And that nothing is physical, everything is energy. But we work with source, with universal life force, with cosmic energies. He talks about the cosmos, again, interesting. And he talks about the New Age. And of course, we know about New Age spirituality. It was completely hijacked. But the New Age as a concept is an actual thing because it is the New Age of Aquarius. I think so much of what we have around us at the moment is truth. And it's simply a matter of finding that truth, finding our truth, and connecting back to our hearts so that we can connect to those higher realms. Okay, so let me know your thoughts on this transmission. Does it resonate with you? Does it feel good? Does it feel out of date? And what are your thoughts on the Galactic Federation? Okay, all right, take care for now, and I'll see you soon. Bye.